discussion and some closing remarks, and see a video of what we have done over the last few days, listen to rapporteurs briefly, and then we can go and drink whatever it is we drink. So without further ado, I would like to invite Leon Lidigu. Leon?
By Offland. So it's a pleasure to be here. On to my, we'll move to Tariq Muley from the MENA community. Let's just ladies first. So, so please, yes, just start. Thank you.
I think everyone knows me by now. My name is Bongile Nkosi, and I am one of the co-executives, as you know. And Flo and I do our co-leadership model in a way, and I would like to actually elaborate on it later. But we co-share in our governance system. This thesis that was focusing, and it was so interesting to apparently in development. We did do some studies on can private sector support development efforts. That has been my biggest focus in my master's. And I would like to also just elaborate on that, just to give you background on.
Very much. Let's move to your neighbor.
Thank you very much. Lovely to see you all in the rooms. Talk of young people living with HIV. We are the only organization that is led by young people from the board and from the young people themselves in all our diversities, which is very important. I'm a young mother. I have a lovely young boy who's living HIV negative. I have a partner who's also living with HIV negative. So when you think strategy, think Maximina as a young woman. Don't look further. Think about
the Republic of Tanzania. I work with a network of young people living with HIV. He's a youth advocacy and campaigns manager. Humbling sitting in front of you, as such a young person living with HIV for 6 years now, who went for the diagnostic expert. If I follow him.
Thank you. Thank you.
What you haven't heard from me is that I'm a teacher by profession, a pastor by calling, and a theologian by training. And I am trying to see how faith communities can move beyond, can address global health, public health, and in a way that is intersect. And I have been sending people out loving the people who are at most at risk. So I'm a founder of Friends of Canon Gideon Foundation. That's the work we do. And then Friends of Canon Gideon Foundation helped me to start the international network of religious leaders. It started as Africa Network, but now it is global. And we work closely with the World Council of Churches, UNAIDS, PEPFAR, which was when it was still functioning. Only in Uganda, I represent people, KPs of faith, and persons living with HIV of faith on the equity plan. How do we end AIDS, TB, and malaria without leaving anyone behind?
Thank you very much.
I'm married, remarried. I lost my first wife. I'm remarried with 3 children. The youngest is 21 and is joining university.
Thank you so much. Just hold on to that mic. Earlier this week, for those who follow the news ardently like myself, the Congress has been busy, the US Congress, discussing whether to take PEPFAR and put it under global fund or not. We saw a former PEPFAR boss appear as a witness to make a case. We saw the boss at EGPAF do the same before the US Congress. And on my way here, it just got me thinking, and I will love to know this from all my panelists. Earlier this year, at the stroke of a pen, US President Donald Trump gave an order that was received by many in different ways. From all of you, I want to know, how did it make you feel, number one? And what did you do as a leader? Let's start with you, Father.
Oh, I think I was angry that I am a nobody. Someone thinks I shouldn't be consulted, I shouldn't consult the government, just wakes up and announces. So it made me rethink my role in global advocacy to help people know that the least from power also are human beings. And I liked today when I saw UNAIDS bringing that picture of saying all humans are equal. So that has inspired. Then the second part was, what did I do? I've been pushing out statements to show what we should do as faith communities, to say, yes, we could have had vertical programs, but now it's the time for Africa especially to use the resources they have. We have education schools, we have faith communities, and then we have the private sector. So I'm advocating a love campaign called Triple Love to ensure that this is the time we need love most, and we shouldn't be denied that love in terms of safe behaviors and practices, access to treatment and adherence, the testing, and the empowerment which we are doing now.
Thank you very much. Over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. First and foremost, it made me feel sad, like Leveland said. And what I did as a leader, it was first to I went to just dive deeper to understand what they mean by the work stop order. I just wanted to educate myself to get an insight on that. I just wanted to, after seeing that the government was not coming out to say anything, and there was a lot of misinformation on media, and those misinformation were structured in a way that, you know, the media always want to go viral, particularly on social media. They structured it to say, they were in Swahili. I remember one of the quote wrote, kwa wanaoishi na HIV kukiona. That means, like, if you are living with HIV, now you shall see. And that is what they were, on description of that, they were saying there will be no ART. And that created a panic to me too, even as a leader. And I was like wondering if me here being empowered such a way, and I dived deeper to understand those things, but I was in a panic mode. What about that young person I'm saving in a rural area there who do not understand this, who do not get this information cleared? So it made me confused. That's where I decided to come up with an idea of establishing a simple survey to understand how my fellow young people on ground, they have received it. And then the finding from that survey, it was really shocking. It was really shocking because that's where I learned some of the young people said they decided to split those medicines so that they may last longer. There are others who say that they received a call from their relatives who are living abroad telling them that there will be no more ART, sending them money, find a way to buy ART. And some healthcare worker took advantage of that. They started selling the ART. So it was hectic and chaotic by that time. Yes.
So for me, I think it brought about anxiety, the unknown in terms of what is the future looks like. I'm a young woman. I'm living with HIV. I need to always be virally suppressed. I have a partner who's on PrEP, and it has been the future looks like for my child. And what is so that's the first thoughts that came to me. The second thing that I did is then to find out in my circle as young women, but also as a leader of a global network of young people living with HIV, like what Cyprian has said. What does it even mean for the young person who's down in the most rural areas, where they might not have all this information and all these dialogues that are happening in the years? They don't have that information. So what was my role in relaying what that means? And also the issues of psychosocial support was very important. How do we link young people who are very anxious, who have gone on drug holidays, because we are very much afraid that I need to take my ARVs a bit. Thank you.
So, on my side, I think it's so funny because at GNP Plus we do this. Rick does these extreme scenarios where he gives us 3 scenarios and he says, what happens if there's a new election and the government just cuts funding? So he actually reminded us later on, but we remembered that because after that we've been planning based on the fact that funding can go, right? And really thinking, what does that mean for countries? What are the anticipations? So that day, Monday morning, the meeting was starting on Monday morning and coming into the room. And I have to just describe, in January, Florence and I learned that there's 2 types of leaders. There's where you lead with your heart, and then there's people who lead in their brains. And part of the work that we've had to do to really work at GNP Plus, we've had to use our brains a lot. So we call them hyper-rational at work, where the hyper-rational completely shuts down for a bit and says, what is the solution? So that day, we had to really sit down and listen to the conversations. And the conversations for us were people were worried in that moment. People were worried, but then in that moment in the panel, there was someone who had worked from the US Congress and basically said something like, different governments starting to speak about shifting. So when it happened that moment, I was like, oh my God, here we are. We have gone to that point where we didn't think we thought it was going to come from Europe, but we didn't anticipate the US cutting. But at the same time, I think, and that moment, I think on our side, because we had gone from a transition at GNP Plus, we understood how leaders come in and with their own vision, with their own direction, and with their own decision. The room, when we went in the room, it was, for us, what was heavy for me and Florence, particularly I was quite heavy, and I said to Flo, I'm heavy because we can't speak like this when there's so much infrastructure that has been built. There's so much work that has, 40 years just like that. Yes, the resources are not there for now, but we will find a way. There's resilience within the HIV response. We've seen it. And it reminded me also of the 2008 economic crash, when a lot of us, I was one of the people, my mom was actually affected by it because she was in business, where we lost everything. So in that moment, for me, also gave me a bit of hope that, oh, the world goes through a curve in life. All of us go through a curve, and right now, we are in an economic go and ask the countries. So we met with AIDS funds and we said, we don't want to sit here and assume that we know what's happening at a country level. So that's when we started sending out the survey to actually understand what was happening in countries. But on our side, we really went into solutions.
Yes, Latin, especially with PEPFAR, after all the incredible work PEPFAR has done. Now, my question to you as a leader, and I want you to address the young leaders as well. What is the new leadership required to do to adjust to this new reality, in your own words?
I want to reflect, because we've been reorganizing ourselves, and at GNP Plus, particularly because we anticipated this would happen. And we had to go back to the drawing board and say, if we were to lose funding right now, right, what is needed? And the nice conversation now is that we are having these conversations together. And what is turning out in these conversations is that we do need to shift the way we've been thinking. We moved from, and I just want to paint a picture, we moved from, activism is like this, how movements are built is that there's a crisis, and we all come in with no money, and we build a movement, a strong movement. And with HIV, what was lacking institutionalized, particularly PLHIV networks. But then, I remember coming in at the treatment action campaign, and also then seeing the difficulty in a lot of rift because there wasn't any form of funding that came with sustaining the organizations, not projects, not the response. And therefore, after that, and I think right now the PLHIV networks where they are, they've been struggling to really build themselves as organizations, right? And therefore, the leaders that we need right now, and just looking at the HIV sustainability plans, is that we are moving away from donor-reliant to thinking like more like a business. We have to now. One of the things we have to think about is value. So we have to sit down and we have to have a moment. And I don't know if we do have the luxury to have a moment where we have to strategize, because there's so many questions we have to answer moving forward. There was someone who spoke about we need to get into social contracting. That's a business model. Can we answer ourselves that our institutions are strong enough financially to hold a business model like that, right? So what it needs is a real shift around thinking about the leaders that we're going to need now. Is we've spoken that some people said about Florence, so there was distrust, but we had to lead a global network. Now we are coming in, and one of the things we said as both as leaders is what is important. What is important is to make sure that GNP Plus is strong as two leaders that don't trust each other. And we asked ourselves, so therefore, now we are going into a partnership. What does this partnership require of both of us? And what required both of us is trust, and there's always cost and opportunities. And what I mean about that is that there's a lot of compromising when you are in leadership. So there's certain things, and trust means that you have to trust that this is my role and this is your role, and I need to give you the opportunity to lead it the way you. Partnership where we say, can we trust the process we have? Is that, can government trust us have we demonstrated thinking of what is here? We started as a big organization with big projects. And what we see is that GNP Plus will play a much smaller role because countries, PLHIV networks in countries. And therefore there's a lot of, that's the leadership that is needed now. Leadership comes a lot with compromises, so it means that our activism might have to be different, which means we might have to go and negotiate our position. And right now, governments hold power. And the one who holds power means that you must government, understanding that we need money from them.
Thank you very much. Maximina, I would love to, yes, let's give out country Kenya. Kenya depends or has a deal with Global Fund in a co-financing mechanism whereby there's a portion the government has to remit for us to get supply for health commodity. Observed zero paying. As much as she says we need to build that trust, how are we going to?
The government doesn't trust communities. It is. Having that voice for me is very important in that aspect. Secondly, we can also look at what is the voice of youth, and leaders in that aspect as well, because voice, you talked about Kenya, right? And you know how the JNCs turned the bill in Kenya by just, especially from the young people's leadership, to make sure that the voice is very clear, the demands are very clear, and exactly what we want should be the ones that we are supposed to push for. That's what I can say for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would love, a lot is being said, and how, you know, the existing structures in dealing with HIV even helped the world navigate COVID-19. You know, does partnering with governments as we move forward really look like and entail?
The future has two scenarios. There is a gentleman who has written a book, The End of Humanity, and is saying this is our last century. And I have responded to say, yes, it could be true, thinking about America. We are global, so that's why I now love, you know. So if love is not being reflected in the budget, it's not being reflected on the policies, on how you handle the most vulnerable. What love are you talking about? You know, we even have titles like His Grace, His Eminence. Now, if that grace is not being reflected on the ground, so I think the future is really inviting us to critique things we have heard, you know. For example, now I've brought in this issue of could the state, that there was a time when kings were there, then the Romans emperors were overtaken and said, no, we are tired of all this, we want a republic. And in 1648, there was this Westphalia agreement that has bound the state. You can't interfere in my affairs, you know, that type of thing. But if running the state is costing humans more than serving the humans, is that something maybe we should interrogate? A global federal movement, fully integrated by 2050, and we save all of that money. Let's see how Africa becomes fully integrated by 2063. We save that money. And let's see how by the turn of the century, 21st century, 22nd century, that helped us to see, but is running more efficiently, more organically, and you know, and everything is down. They are going to the future is us. For that is united freedom of access to health and other common goods for all people without anyone being left behind or out. And that is us to create by doing what we are doing today. I'm also excited on what is happening on the national level countries. I have my national coordinator here, Flavia Chumukama. She's really putting government on its tentacle. Is it tentacles or what? But let that integration be stigma sensitive, equity competent, and human rights resilient. And so we should really be marking ourselves on how we can do self-audits. Another thing, as a religious leader, I found this, the CRM card, score card, was not working for me. The CRM is looking at the clinics and the services. Me, I want to score how are we performing in love and grace and compassion and equity as faith. How are we expressing, if we say forgiveness, how is that? But each sector looking at how they are contributing to innovations ahead.
Thank you so much. And I'm sure the Kenyan Gen Zs would love to have you in their corner. Thank you. A round of applause for him as young people before we come back to you. My question to you is this: how do we transition and harness young leadership to sustain the movement into the future? Your thoughts?
Okay, thank you so much. I'll keep telling what I said the other day, that I think this is the first, this is the time that we, Mr. Kamau, whatever anyone in the room, they have witnessed in those 20 years back. We understand that we are in this funding cut, which is really dangerous, and we need to find a way that we sustain our movement. For us to be able to sustain our movement as young people, I will call us in the room, those who are listening and everyone else, to make sure that now we, as a young leader at the national level, how do I empower those young people at the grassroots level to be able to hold to account government at their level? And then we have a collective voice coming from down and feeding us at the top, and then we're engaging in what happen. We'd love to see things are happening in this way. But what we are lacking most of the time is the backup from the young people that we are representing at the grassroots level. And most of the time, tools, we know what works, and we know what. Our focus has been to the health-related issues only. And we are leaving out other key components that would have helped us to also complement to the health issues. If it happened in the room, I call any young person like me and ask, how many times have you attended a village meeting that is discussing a development at the village grassroots level? And then we need to build movement. Getting us young people contracting HIV, maybe those who are not living with HIV, is maybe because we are doing transactional sex. And the issue is maybe poverty. How do we village level, and also we are part of it? So they cannot listen us in the HIV spaces. At least we are in those development spaces. They will have no option to escape us, because we'll also be there. We'll find a way to amplify our voices there. So we need to be everywhere. We don't have to leave it out and say this is not for us. I would give an example of this when we talk about the poverty. It's like if the village are discussing about how are they going to the village committee that is convening to be empowered economically, and then they'll tell you that we discussed about this, and so I can call them that way. They have taken that money because we were not part of those decisions. So we need to have been having for some time now. We bring on like correct tax. We pay tax. We need to hold them to an account. We need the Minister of Finance to come on board, and then we just have this conversation together. The UNAID has estimated very recently saying that if the US fund, the US assistance is not going to be restored in the next 4 years, we are going to have 6.3 million it's us. These are the data that shows that way. That's the reason why we need to find our own mechanisms of holding our government to account. To say that to be part of these decisions, we need to allocate this. To do that, if we do not educate ourselves to those budgets and so on.
Thank you very much.
If we do not know that how much our country correct for 94% of the HIV response in Tanzania, go and read the data, are reliant on donor support. And that is how we found that we are speaking with passion, because we feel like, okay, they have gone now, and they will still come other times. Thank you.
Round of applause for him. I thank you so much, sir. I'm even inspired to attend the next village meeting in my village. I'll find out. And for us Gen Zs, please, if you go to the next one, please just put it on TikTok. We will watch. Yes, I would love to go back to Madam over there. Now, he's been talking about even reaching in the village. That to me entails civic education to the future.
I think so. I agree with you. It's really civic education is that you're empowered. Communities that are empowered to be able to engage in the processes, right? If you say, though, is that about, we read a lot, if you go to where Trump translates governments, is the private sector own policies. So as we say, we are holding governments accountable, we also need to understand that in there's private sector, the very same private sector that make money from governments, right? So the political climate. And also then building economic movements that are building climate change, private sector is taking over the governments and other movements. So that's, but and maybe I'm a pessimist. I really am a pessimist, because I don't know how we're going young people being captured budget. And and that's why I'm saying the world that operate in a business. The world is education. Then how do young people, for them it's about business. Right now they're at the markets. And then we saw what we're seeing. So I do think that in the civic and find money, because private sector is ruthless. It's all about profit, it's all about business, and nothing about people.
Thank you very much. If I could go to our team over there, there's something I submitted. I would love the audience to have a look at it. Can it be put up on screen, please? Thank you. To have a look at it. It has obliterated our charts at Nation. It's even more red than all the political stories. This is happening right now in this country as we are seated. And this drives me back to our last segment of conversation, which I feel is very important that we need to have. It's called mental health. These women are doing that because there's a lot of stigma still around it. To me, sometimes as a journalist, a person who struggles with that. So my questions, starting with Father, mental health. A lot has been said have in store in terms of mental health. Yes.
You see, yesterday we really did that very well, that for this, that the message out there was the message stigmatizing us. Abstain if you can't. If you can't abstain. And so when a government official is making a speech, he mentions ABC. When the religious leader is talking, and I'm like, wait a minute. We need a message that can support civic education. If I have formed carpet, what should we ask? 30 with more better prepared. That the first arm of what you have asked, how to defeat stigma, is to ask whether the partnership to defeat stigma. Other thing is the arm that supports it and treatment is the budget. The partnerships is the one of young people. That we have this group, some is living with HIV, others are negative. Their accompaniment are we giving them? You know. Yeah. And then the other level of is how do we that health? You need to have the intent, and that's why. And what among the KPs, so that is important. If the and left-handed, what are you trying to fight? So that emotional intelligence needs to be built. And the other intelligence, we actually examined 7 of them, but the most important for this debate is the legislative intelligence. How are you legislating for health? And not just health, equitable health for all. And that would translate now into judicial intelligence. Why are you criminalizing? In Uganda, Gloria, I'm working with Gloria on the criminalization of, we have a law which says deliberate transmission is punishable. And I'm like, how will you define deliberate transmission? How deliberate is deliberate? Okay, assuming you want to keep that law, why don't you add a B, Article B, which says, okay, we punish deliberate transmission, but we also punish deliberate acquisition. Why do you think that it is the person living with HIV who should only be responsible for their health? So the judicial intelligence has to come in also. Yeah. And then,
thank you. Thank you very much. Now, I would love to wind up with you, Maximina. Now, Maximina, a few weeks ago, I was deep in one of Africa's largest slums called Kibra, here in Nairobi. I visited a young lady who was so angry after that Trump order. And she told me one thing. People are focusing on funding cuts and the money. But for them, they have also lost relationships they had built with the community health workers, who for some were big sisters. That young lady is in a discordant marriage. Yeah? Yeah. And she was telling me, there are things I cannot tell my husband. I tell this community health worker who conveys them. So for her, she was actually, because the Amref clinic had been shut down at the place where they were. And that makes me wonder, for you providing leadership to young people, what must young people do now in terms of mental health, in terms of taking care of themselves? Like, believe between you and I, millennials, Gen Zs, Gen Alphas, they process things differently compared with boomers and the previous generations.
Definitely. Thank you so much. So I think the first thing that we need to do, which is very clear, and the message is very loud from the young people, especially when we're having our group earlier on, was we need to capacitate ourselves. We need to know the language that is being talked about in this room and broader in terms of what sustainability is it all about? What is integration? And what does integration looks like and talks about to us as young people? Is integration going to work the way that we have described it in this room? Or are we have a different definition of what integration? That's where mental health comes in. And Jerome, my friend back there, then says, you can't just give me treatment. It has to be treatment with care and support. That's where the mental health comes in. Very important. Secondly, we need to make sure that young people are in the rooms where you all are in these rooms. We are talking about sustainability, but you don't have the young people in the exact same lines. We have been capacitated. We now know where exactly are we then going to execute our ideas from. So if the Sibos and the Florences are getting to these different conversation about health financing with different governments, you've already created some form of a roadmap. Where is this young person along that lines that you need to take along with? That speaks to the issues of mentorship, which is very critical for me, so that we sustain the gains that we are talking about. Mental health is not something that we can always say, oh, we can do. It has to be funded. That's absolute reality. So we need to define what is the priority of this young person, especially mental health, and who is providing this. Even outside this circle, we have other sectors that are providing mental health. How are we as young people also reaching out? We need collaboration with you. This is the exact same thing that we are going through. How do you come in play and work with us as young people? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would you add something?
I just wanted to add on the mental health aspect, particularly with the future we're going into, and to expect governments to put money in it, they won't. That's the reality. But however, we do need to also need to decolonize mental health, because from a scientific, there's a scientific way of looking at mental health and providing care in a very scientific way. But if you look at new scholars that are looking at mental health and decolonizing mental health, you find that we've had mental health programs in Africa. For us, going to church, that's a self-care model, because when I'm at church, there's community, there's love. That's where. So I'm just trying to say there is models of mental health mechanisms already in our communities that we take them for granted. Just going to sit under a tree and saying to yourself, 1 hour, I'm just going to disengage. That's a mental health tool. So therefore, I do think we do need to just go back again to the basics of saying, when I'm sure our ancestors also struggled with mental health, what was the literature then of solving a mental health issue? Because right now, even right now, people in mental health, I've been on meds for probably 6 years. And last year, I decided to stop, and I said to my doctor, I would like to stop because I was not getting better. I was relying on a medication to make me feel happy. And I've explored different models of mental health, particularly the most basic ones of saying, I will go to church, I'll make sure I prioritize this. And therefore, how do we build that into a program for our people? Because there's no way we're going to have, just next 2 to 3 years, we're not going to have government putting money in mental health. They will look at it as probably a tertiary priority. But I do think that there's a whole mental health decolonization conversation that has started, and other people are talking about the feminist movements, for instance, talk about rest, radical rest. That's a form of mental health intervention. Other people in right now, there's other ways of looking at, sorry to mention this, I don't want to mention this, but I have to, but certain plants that you can take that can help you de-stress the trauma that you have. And these are indigenous practices of mental health. And therefore, we do need to go back to that without thinking of mental health as a public health agenda. I just wanted to add.
Thank you. A round of applause. Yes. Thank you so much. Yes. Thank you so much. You've been an incredible audience. I really would like to appreciate the panel. Round of applause for all of them. Thank you so much. I feel smarter than I arrived, so that's a good sign, right? Yes. And there are some people whenever you meet them, you just feel happy. I hope that is part of your mental health. Thank you. So with that, I would love to hand it over, and thank you so much.
Come on, I mean, they deserve a bigger hand than that. And a special one for our moderator. What? Some moderation. Thank you so much. Right, what a way to end the day. Wow, I mean, that was really true detox. And now we know we've even got a Sangoma in the room. So yeah, there we go. I wonder what our fee is. I shall collect all the fees. Thank you so much. That was absolutely fantastic. So I think if we'll try and see if we can leave the room in time. But at this time, is the video ready? I would like us to draw attention to our screens for a short presentation of what you guys have been up to in the last couple of days. Okay, over to you guys. What's happening? Okay. All right. I'm told it shall come in at another time. That's great. Okay, great. So we were going to have closing remarks from a dear friend, but she said she had emptied herself enough throughout these couple of days and felt, she didn't have to say anything. But I just want to take this moment to thank some really special people who've made this, a very exciting time. Who've traveled from very far. There's Vuisek herself, Sean Melos, Violetta, the GNP Plus team from Amsterdam. There will be special thanks, of course, given by the leadership later. But I wanted to acknowledge those, and especially our NEFAC wonder makers. Thank you so much, guys. You've made this a very exciting time. So so that would be the vote of thanks. So I would like now to invite the rapporteurs to come forth. Rapporteurs, just to give us a rough summary really high-level summary, not a rough, high-level summary of what's been going on. Yeah, over to you guys. And there you go. Projection assistance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, 1 second.
All right.
Entertain.
Apologies. Where is that? Was it Catherine? Who was an energizer for us? People are frowning at me, scared I will have an energizer. Yes, I will. We want an energizer we had one from Kenya. Can we have an energizer from Southern Africa? Anybody? East Africa? Yeah? Mululeke? That's... Vuiseka. Give us one, my sister. We haven't sung a whole 3 days. That's your closing.
Does this group sing?
Yes. That's what we need to find out.
Does this network sing? You don't sound like you are singing. Okay. From Cape to Cairo, Morocco to Madagascar. Who's after me? Have you sang in a choir? We can't all be Yes, yes, you got it. Mlulek, you know the song, please. From K.
Over to you.
Oh, sorry. Hi, I am Daniel Townsend, and I'm a technical advisor to GNP Plus. And we've had such a very rich discussion today. We've managed to say to each other, to say as a community within a week or so. So anytime you're ready, let me know. I won't sing. You don't want. I guess I can prep the ground a bit. So a lot of what you will, some of the discussions, the points made really sort of captured not just cope or leadership is paramount. Next slide. One of the key themes coming out of this meeting was heard here is that you're, as community leaders that are being implemented, become more responsive. They become more innovative and ultimately more sustainable. And this is what we sort of need in this moment to translate all of these different policies into effective community-based and locally led interventions. There's a lot that we do as a group. That's where that's where you see the shortfall. That's where they don't get the services and the care that they need. Next slide, please. The other big theme is that GNP Plus, which is kudos to the leadership team that pulled this together in record time. GNP Plus is broker. Have a minimum acceptable, harmonized, standardized guidelines for the requirements of PLHIV participation in national processes. But this engagement, knowledge sharing, technical assistance, capacity building, but also the creation of spaces and resources and tools to share best practices, do this in a coordinated response. And that we do this as a way to combat inconsistent donor funding and other structural barriers that we will meet from in our communities, our governments, and so on. So that's important. And then, of course, there's the impact on the broader response with incredible ways to support each other in different times. And what we know is an operational support for organizations to help so that we can ensure that our seat at the table is one that will never go away, and we are there, and it is not challenged. And also we have a unified earlier that yes, we will have impact. It will lead to stronger and a much more coherent. Next slide. The next slide is one that's I think is very powerful, and that's about a just transition. We know we live in times in a just and equitable way. Been around for a very long time. A just transition looks like having strengthening linkages to care first and foremost. It's not just about getting money, but ensuring that people have comprehensive strategies in place that can ensure that the care that our community need is multidimensional, needs social needs. And this must be done in a way that we must work, at least as a group, as leaders, in our leadership role, we should do so in a way that is barrier-free. But we also need to do that in a way that is mutual, to demand justice for what's happening. Then we also look at the ways in which things are done differently and a differentiated approach, but those approaches should not undercut each other approaches and other strategies. Here what we've heard is that for our communities, but also empower our local health system and community systems. Local health systems, there's a great quote, it was Health Center. We know that people have we are in the community, we're of the community, and that is a part of what we need to ensure that the funding and the resource mobilization that happens do not leave our community structures out. Those are key to having to having the support that we need. And this means, you know, integration of community feedback, and also that means having community-led over to giving us the care and support that we need. What for community programs as well. They're about the structures that we've had. We cannot live with unstable programs and policies. The action that is protect our community. We've heard, you know, like we are accountable, and that's how we will ensure that or lead the way that we know that we. We'll have this. Yep.
To invite Helena to just give us a quick rundown of what we're going to do now. Maybe it has a special place. Where's Helena?
This week,
this moment,
with support from our dear partners,
There we go.
Now. Yes. Are we tired?
Sorry, Helena,
This
my
week,
apologies. Just
with
one quick
support from
announcement.
our
I
dear
forgot to mention.
partners and donors, this week, with support from our dear partners and donors, People Living with HIV Leadership Summit, held in Nairobi, Kenya, hosted by the National Network of People Living with HIV. We are proud to have sat together with support from our dear partners and donors, People Living with HIV Leadership Summit, held in Nairobi, Kenya, hosted by the National Network of People Living with HIV. Participants, 80 participants from 18 countries, from GNP Plus mobilized People Living with HIV leaders to the first ever People Living with HIV Leadership Summit, held in Nairobi, Kenya, hosted by the National Network of People Living with HIV, from 18 countries from Africa. We have sat together
But really, you know, what we have seen, and especially with two African women running a global movement, we want to honor you and just say, and congratulations on your success.
Okay, in case you're wondering how my voice will sound like in my 90s, that video just gave you like a clue. In case you're it doesn't work. I don't know how you shout one word. How are we feeling? People with very many things, even from the NEFAC team. And I would write all this crazy team. And I would write all this. Someone his phone yesterday and said he woke up one morning to 20 emails from me. A, we had the money, or B, we had planned it or anything. No. We talked to a couple of people who told us it would be possible. Our plan was to have us all brought together, borrowing in just been adapted, and then plan to meet you all your letter, who I had a conversation with. We both met in February. We were all confused. It was February, I think. And I explained to her our vision and our thinking. And now, more than ever, me about something. An email came. And then she said, we need a meeting. Other people can stay 2 more days, HIV disease. The people you bring, can they stay an extra day? Saying, oh, interesting. I could give you this. I could give you that. And one morning, we woke up with Cedric. We didn't even tell Kenley. Sorry. And we were like, let's dump these people. We can do this ourselves and bring people. But the point is, this meeting didn't happen because GNP Plus has money. I just want to start there. This meeting happened because we realized it was needed and called a little bit of money from Gilead. We pulled our money from Love Alliance, our global advocacy money, which is funded by the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs. From PLHIV. This came last month. Like, what just happened? But thank you so much. And I don't think all the donors. Donors, thank you so much. A few other donors said. So, thank you. Then we have our partners. I know they say when Florence asks, you can't, and I had to sit down with that and you have to check yourself. Well, one quality of leadership is self-reflection. If you don't do it, you need to do it. Like, am I a bully? How are people? But I did ask a lot of them know what I assigned them. They just went like, whatever you asked, and people said yes. Thursday. With less than a week to come. The visa, we are here now. So a clap for yourself. To the NEFAC team, thank you so much. Some of us look like we are sad. I just wanted to thank, we can't lie. There, and some was not even prepared. You have to make some of the hardest decisions from a very rationalized part. When Sibo says you mute the meeting, like that's how bad shift. Where? What's important? It's a shift. In our corners and talk to ourselves living with HIV movement. Because it was handed over to us by people. And we have to, I will say this again, Cyprian, Maxi, Laura, the leaders of now going ahead, need something. Karen. Remind me your name. I'm only calling girls. I feel bad. Sorry? We can't be the leaders that end this. So what will we do? But we can't do what we did before January 20th. I am telling you, it will not work. So let's come together. Some of us were born with it. Some of us are going to learn it. Some of us will be. Sibo says that to our team. This is ego. It's not a moment of self-interest. It's not a moment of wanting what was comfortable. It's a moment of service, thinking ahead, thinking really. The door is opened. This is the start of many conversations and many opportunities. We are really, really excited to take us forward.
And who would wear the HIV, I was able to, that day when I got my diagnosis, to say, I've got plenty of women behind me, so there's nothing that are coming. And therefore, I really today want to say thank you to all of you that have done this work for us who came late. Parents and I usually laugh because when she tells me the stories navigating relationships, navigating work. I should never ever forget that. And then vision, and everybody will like, we've been stretched for the past 2 days. There was a moment when I felt helpless for us. I will not lie. There was a moment when I said, and I really felt despondent at that moment. And I remember saying to Vuvu, I'm feeling helpless. And Vu saying at the door, okay, we've got it. And I sat down. But again, we know that visions are built in these moments where it's uncomfortable, and I want you to go and feel that discomfort. And to use that analogy of Superman because that's what activists do. But I think in this moment, it's also okay for our mental health again. It's also okay to just say, for now, my people, and have a conversation, just because this is so complex. And then another analogy I want to use, there's a day I was in Johannesburg and there was a storm. When there's a storm coming, you can see. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to drive home alone. Oh, it's getting dark. And then I get into this, the minute I get into the car and I start driving, the storm starts. And I'm like, there's a storm. And people right now to say we are in a storm, but we need to keep going. Because when we go, we will get there and where we need to be. So for me, really, I do want to thank all of you. I want to thank our partners. The World Churches of Cancer. I heard about you from the minute, and I also want to thank the GNP Plus team because when you were making the contribution, we were really, really affected. We lost actually about 3 grants, which pays about 7 staff members. And last year, I want to tell you that it's sustainable. So this year, again, it was really painful to sit, and we tried our best to maintain a few people. And what the team agreed on is we will reduce our hours because we understand that this moment is service. And then when we went to the team and said, we are cutting down the hours, but it will go to our networks. And they say, not fair. But I do want to thank the GNP Plus staff because they said it's the most important guys. But as I said earlier on, we are in a storm. But in a storm, you just have to go through it. And again, I think these are the starts of conversation. And the most important thing is what do we do after? And I do hope that we can continue. And I know Flo will not sleep for us to continue. So it's going to be a lot more conversations. And on our side, I think there's a lot that we will also challenge the GNP Plus team when we are told, particularly from network and network leaders, we do listen. We do take that feedback and we do think about how can we do better. So again, just really thank you again for coming from all over, and there's power in the gathering. So I hope again we can gather because there was so much power that came from this. Thank you.
To an end, we are very happy that all of you are here. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will be gathering a few pictures and we will be sharing with
GNP Plus mobilized people living with HIV leaders.
If you could pray, a closing prayer. Is that okay?
This week, with support for living,
it will come down and humanity will be saved. I'm not talking about the saved in the religion. I'm talking about and the stigma and all of that. Each one of us calls that. And you have heard that you have kept us. Thank you for the convening, prioritizing, and re-strategizing and seeing where we can add value to the global HIV response so that we can end AIDS by 2030, but also sustain that end. And our conveners have said it's a complexity. We feel it, thank you. If there is sickness, but if there is raising for full health, inclusive health, we thank you, Lord. And now we are set to leave. Comfort those that are not seeing the challenge we have or are part of the problem in driving and sustaining the stigma, but also AIDS itself.
And keep governments.
We call upon that power to imbue us, to inhabit us, engage us, so that we go out of this hole inspired to do more, to do better. Keep with you, remain with you, encourage you, give you a peace of mind that the world cannot give you love, convenience, and all the blessing. Continue reminding us the journey we have come. We either win.
This week, with support from our dear partners and donors, People Living with HIV Leadership Summit, held in Nairobi, Kenya, hosted by the National Network of People Living with HIV, we are proud to have sat together with participants, 80 participants from 18 countries from regions of Asia, ICA, LAC, MENA, and Africa. We have sat together. We have been visited by partners who have come and shared with us insightful knowledge, eye-openers, understood where the intention and the challenges exist. We went to our community. Now, we have to get to work.
And we can't ignore that in this, as people call it, a crisis. I think we are saying we are starting back to basics, right? And therefore, now, and that is the action that will see themselves as equal partners to governments, equal partners to the donors, and right now the HIV response needs this. And one of the biggest will be much stronger.
We need to ask our governments, please do not outsource the supply chain of our treatment. When you take full country ownership as GNP Plus to connect country networks to our government, NACs and ministries of health, in order to rework and going forward so that it remains state's own time. Please go get your treatment and stay on treatment. But we will also work within the community structures we've built to ensure that it was shut down, moves to another now. There are leaders that will be bold, that will sit and be objective as we plan for the future. We are excited for the action ahead, and please look out for the various documentations that we will share that came from this meeting.